he brought in and hosted Prime Minister Narendra Modi in his vehicle, in his security vehicle, and they drove around for an hour. The world watched when Prime Minister Narendra Modi sat inside President Putin's car, and President Putin actually waited for 10 minutes because Prime Minister Narendra Modi was held up at that time. Now, these are fresh visuals coming through. The red carpet has been laid out. Prime Minister Narendra Modi may walk up right up to the front along with the Foreign Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar. He will be there, and President Putin will step out of the special aircraft, the presidential aircraft. Now, we will have, that's Prime Minister Narendra Modi getting off the vehicle and greeting the people present. There is a special guard of honor right at the tarmac, and President Putin will get out of the aircraft any moment now, and we should have those pictures. This is indeed a big moment, and Siddhant and Arun Dhanta with us. Siddhant, weigh in on this. The Bharat Dosti, Russia Dosti, the President Putin, Prime Minister Narendra Modi connection and them knowing each other goes back to 2001, where we have pictures of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, perhaps as Chief Minister of Gujarat at that time, accompanying Prime Minister Vajpayee to Moscow. And at that time, it was Prime Minister Vladimir Putin. Boris Yeltsin was the president. They were sitting there signing documents, and Prime Minister Modi was present. So they go back a long way, more than 2.5 decades. Their association, their knowing each other, their friendship. And perhaps it's now ready to take it to the next level, where they have hinted at a no-limits partnership, where both nations will be committed to helping each other prosper.
Well, yes, that's right, Anand. In fact, the sources are also telling us that wait for a few more surprises by tomorrow. So we could expect, some more surprises coming our way from Prime Minister Modi and President Putin, because till today afternoon we were expecting EMS Jaishankar to be going to receive President Putin. But, by evening, it was CNN News 18 which broke the story first, that Prime Minister Modi will be going to the airport by breaking protocols to receive President Putin. Also, Anand, if you allow me, I would like to share one incident. There was a bilateral meeting which was going on between President Putin and Prime Minister Modi long back, and there was some mic issue, some translation issues. So President Putin immediately intervened and said that we don't need translators. We understand each other's language very well. So that's the level of comfort. That's the friendship and the understanding between the two leaders. And when President Putin said that, Prime Minister Modi also smiled. So as I said, that there's going to be more surprises. There's going to be more gestures, unexpected gestures, which we could expect tomorrow in the national capital when these two leaders are going to meet. And this is the first visit of President Putin to India in 5 years. Today, both leaders will have a private meeting. It will only be President Putin and Prime Minister Modi in room, along with the translators, and perhaps they are going to discuss global scenarios.
That meeting, Siddhant, actually begins also, even as they depart the airport. For all you know, they may just travel in the same car. Whether just checking with Arun Dhanta. Arun, did you also see President Putin's cavalcade, the Aurus Senat, which has been brought down specifically for his visit here and for his local travel? Is that already inside the airport? Is it a possibility that the two leaders may actually share the same vehicle on their way out, on the way to Lok Kalyan Marg?
Well, Anand, it's going to be very, very interesting to see as to what happens, how both the leaders travel, whether they will be a redux moment, what we witnessed in Tianjin in China when President Putin waited for Prime Minister Modi and then both of them traveled in the same car. Will today again be a day when those scenes will be once again seen here? But as we are seeing that Prime Minister Modi is already inside, and we are also told that Vladimir Putin has also reached here. And Anand, let me quickly tell you that the distance from here, the Palam Technical Airport to the 7 LKM, the official residence of Prime Minister Modi, is 11 kilometers. So the moment they come out of this gate, if you can see right now from our camera on our screens right now is 15 to 20 minutes. 7:30 is the time for the dinner. And of course, as we've been speaking to people inside the airport, they're saying that the entire airport is glittering, completely decked up. And Prime Minister Modi, of course, ensuring, because he reached way before time inside the airport and in fact, took a stalk around how's the preparation for the welcome of Vladimir Putin. Remember, as you've been also discussing about this, there have been very few instances when Prime Minister Modi himself had come to the airport, and this year we had seen when Amir of Qatar had arrived, Prime Minister Modi was here, and in 2020 in Ahmedabad for Donald Trump, in 2017 for Sheikh Hasina and for Shinzo Abe, and in 2015 for Barack Obama when he was the chief guest of Republic Day. So today again is the day, and that shows that how important that person is for you, who is coming to your country, and you are himself going there at the airport and waiting for him actually to arrive, and then of course the entire delegation along with you
that
is
10-minute
there to welcome.
wait,
So
that
that's
10-minute wait will go a
special
long
gesture.
way. That will not be forgotten. That 10-minute wait that President Putin made in Tianjin for Prime Minister Narendra Modi to join him inside his vehicle, in his car, will not be forgotten. And perhaps this is also a signal to the world. We'll try and see if we have our guests this evening on the right stand to understand the import of these pictures. We should also have the live visuals coming. These are from just a short while ago. The preparations are at full tilt, and there will be the bonhomie. There will be, where do they meet and greet each other? Both leaders, will they break protocol, and will one invite the other into their cavalcade, and will they travel together, and do the conversations already then begin? Abhijit Iyer Mitra with us. Abhijit Iyer Mitra, big messaging to the world that Russia is an important partner. The West may want to sanction it left, right and center and lampoon it, but Bharat stands steadfast, just like Russia has in the past with Bharat. Those are pictures of President Putin's aircraft landing. Its touchdown has happened and the taxi will happen. These are first pictures coming on CNN News 18. So the presidential plane is on the tarmac. There it is. And then it will just exit the runway, make its way to the tarmac area where officials of both the Prime Minister and the President of Russia, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's officials, and of course the Russian delegation and the Russian officials, they're all present there for this welcome. The red carpet will be laid and then President Putin will alight. But Abhijit Iyer Mitra, as we have these pictures, your thoughts?
Remember, this relationship, it is 70, 80 years old. They have always given us a veto on demand, except for that short period when Andrei Kozyrev was foreign minister. Now, Andrei Kozyrev is a rat who's now in the West sitting and talking about sanctioning Russia and things like that. So we should leave that aside as an aberration. The rest of the time, when have the Russians not come through for us? We used to keep getting moral lectures from the West, when the West had no problem supporting Pakistan with arms and sometimes sending the fleet against us to thwart our attempts at disciplining Pakistan. Russia stood by us. Now, it is not just historical value, Anand. We need to remember we can never allow China and Russia to come together. We have to keep Russia on our good side for our own interest, current interest right now. This is not past baggage we're talking about. This is present geopolitical interest that we have to keep in mind. And this is something that is current. Now, there is also things now like the S-400. I'm very certain there is an S-400 or an S-500 purchase that is going to happen. Sukhoi 27, Sukhoi 57, I don't know. Maybe, may not be. But the relationship is good. It is clear. The dynamics, the geopolitical dynamics of it are 100% solid. Because remember, Russia also can't be stuck with a monopsony market in China. It needs alternative markets for its higher value goods and things like that, which India provides.
True. Ambassador Shashank is with us, former Foreign Secretary of India, and also Surya Jayanti, non-resident senior fellow, Atlantic Council with us. My namaste and Jai Hind. Thank you for your time. Shashankji, your thoughts? How critical, how important is this visit from both Bharat and also Russia's perspective? Shashankji, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, your thoughts, please. Namaste. Anand here. Ji.
Namaste, Anand. No, I didn't hear your question. I thought you were asking someone else.
No, the question was to you.
Yes.
The importance of this visit from both Russia's perspective and also Bharat's perspective. The timing
Yeah,
also.
it's an extremely important visit. It's taking place after 4 years. And when there have been signs that America is trying to bring an end to the Ukraine-Russia conflict, but it is finding that, firstly, the Europeans are not on board. Secondly, the American arms manufacturers are also not on board. So there is some kind of a difficulty within the American setup. So with this as the background, Russia and India are both trying to continue strengthening their relationships. This is a relationship of total mutual trust and which has been built up over a long period of time. And the kind of technology transfers which have taken place between our two countries, they have led to a new situation where we have been talking about a joint production, joint R&D, and investments in both places. So I think these are the issues which have been talked about. Now we need to implement them. And I think keeping in mind India's Atmanirbharta campaign, we should really request this time Russia to do the technology transfer as much as possible to India.
Well, with respect to the S-500s, there is conversation around technology transfer. The S-500s are important in terms of futuristic capabilities. There's conversation around technology transfer and manufacture in Bharat of the Sukhoi 57 too. But will we get there? Because we're still expecting 2 batteries of the S-400s. That's already part of the deal. Surya Jayanti, will it be largely defense or will there be another geopolitical import of this visit too?
This is a hugely important visit, geopolitically speaking. I think the broader background here is, and I say this speaking from Washington, D.C., and as a former U.S. diplomat assigned to Ukraine, the broader background here is that it is not all about the United States all the time. And I think it is easy for Washington often to forget that there are countries out there that have their own long-standing relationships, their own long-standing priorities that diverge from the United States' geopolitical and economic priorities. So what Washington is watching unfold is exactly that situation now between Russia and India. And what Washington wants is, of course, a big part of the dance that's going to go on, because Modi is in a position where he needs to balance both his interests with Moscow and also his interests with Washington, D.C. But there are many aspects of this that the United States has no role in. And so I think we will see as much of a strengthening of the relationship as possible between India and Russia from this. I think it will be couched very much in rhetoric of global stability. I think India will be quite careful to make sure that it isn't saying anything inflammatory to the United States. But we are watching a little bit of a global power realignment, and the Russia-India-China shift of power from Western capitals to these Eastern countries is something that I think is rapidly unfolding and that the Russian war in Ukraine has played a big part of. And then most broadly, or at least with respect to the balance of power between Russia and India, I think Russia needs India a lot more than India needs Russia right now. And so I think this is an excellent opportunity for India to secure some concessions in defense, some contracts in energy, manufacturing, as well as broader strategic gains.
Well, Bharat has a 70 billion import bill and just a 4 billion export bill to Russia right now. So that trade deficit needs to be balanced a bit. Nikita Menkovich, director of the Eurasian Analytical Club, is also with us. My namaste. Thank you for your time. Your thoughts on this? There are 10 GOMs that are supposed to be signed. That's not necessarily defense. What do you think will be the key focus areas, Nikita, as far as President Putin's perspective is concerned? Because there have been some placatory tones post the Witkoff meet from the Americans. There has been some indications from Mr. Peskov also, where he said that we just need a sovereign guarantee from Ukraine that they will not join NATO, and then we can immediately cease fire. Will that conversation also happen between these two leaders? Is Bharat playing a role in the Russia-Ukraine conflict? Nikita.
First of all, I'd like to underline that there is no Russian-Ukrainian conflict. It is a Ukrainian problem, Ukrainian conflict, in which Russian and Ukrainian army fighting against puppet government in Kiev. They are fighting for those land and for those freedom. That's what it is about. Of course, in this case, Russia is dealing with United States, who established and controlled so-called Ukrainian government of Mr. Zelensky. The only thing we want our land back. We want freedom for our people. We want guarantees that no new war will be produced by United States and NATO on the Ukraine territory. Of course, we doesn't want to see there NATO troops, American soldiers, American occupation. That's all about. Please don't talk about so-called Russian-Ukrainian conflict. A lot of Ukrainian people fighting against American mercenaries in Russian troops. Russian and Ukrainian people are allies against NATO aggression. You should remember it.
It's also about the narratives and perspectives from either side. And one of the things perhaps that Bharat can learn is to how to shed the Western narrative and to try and pursue a narrative that is important to the country. The Russians seem to be doing that very focused and ably, and have negotiated a huge gamut of sanctions and financial distress to continue to sustain themselves. But Farwa Amer, Director of South Asia Initiatives, Asia Society Policy Institute, would you agree with Nikita, Surya, or would you have a different perspective itself on the import of this visit, the connect between these two leaders, and more importantly, the Bharat-Russia dosti? Can this move to that no limits description that was hinted at by Mr. Peskov?
Well, thank you for having me. I do agree with what Surya said. It is important for India to value and to keep continuing to support its partnerships both with Russia and with the United States. Of course, this has been a challenging year for the US-India relationship. There's the trust deficit that has developed, and this visit is coming at a very delicate time because of the US sanctions and the tariffs and the trade deal that is on the table between the United States and India. And there's been a decrease in the crude oil imports that had seen a massive increase and was something notable for the United States between India and Russia. So now when this visit is going to happen, it's going to be one where India would want to make sure that the overall relationship, despite these differences that have emerged because of the sort of curbing the oil imports in light of the US sanctions and to comply with some of the US demands, and in terms of securing its relationship with the West, it will be to also make sure that the relationship with Russia stays stable and steady. One of the biggest narratives coming out of India is to expand this relationship and take it beyond defense and oil, and to try and make it more broadly economic, sort of one where there is room for more technological cooperation. There is room to do more on the civil nuclear cooperation side and collaboration side. There's one labor mobility agreement that's likely going to be signed as well. So, to engage more from a people-to-people perspective. So how can you take this relationship and make it a little bit broader to kind of maintain that status of this privileged and strategic partnership? Of course, this has been a testing time for India because this year has sort of laid out how much strategic flexibility there is for India in this rapidly evolving geopolitical order that we are seeing, not just with how India is engaging with Russia in light of what's coming out of the West and Western policy uncertainty towards India, but also how it's kind of stepped up even so cautiously in terms of its engagement with China. When Prime Minister Modi was in China after 7 years for the SCO, that event in itself also had reactions come out of Washington. So there is room, however, to see to kind of make sure that both relationships can somehow remain in parallel and do well if there's progress on the Ukraine negotiations, peace negotiations.
Well, there may be territorial disagreements. There would also be an adversarial thought process between China's machinations under the CCP and the PLA vis-a-vis Bharat. But when a nation like and under the leadership of Donald Trump tries to weaponize trade, then can other nations set aside their territorial ambitions and look at how they can use economics, they can use trade to perhaps defang bullies? Is that a possibility, Shashankji? But if it comes to Bharat and Russia, then there has to be a rupee-ruble agreement. Because you can't base it on the dollar if Russia continues to be sanctioned and Bharat continues to be threatened with sanctions if it continues to buy oil. Although it's hypocritical that nations in Europe, America itself continues to trade with Russia, be it fertilizers, oil, energy, etc.
Yeah, I agree with you that America has been putting unilateral tariffs on India, which is quite unfair. But India has to see that, well, they have not put these tariffs on China, Europe, and on itself. And therefore, we have to ensure that whatever oil and other energy resources we buy from Russia, we should use it for ourselves, number one. Secondly, we should go for technology transfer, because that will be strengthening the Atmanirbharta campaign of India. Thirdly, as you said, that we have to make arrangement for rupee-ruble trading directly, whichever way it is possible, either by more investments by Russia and India, by choosing a larger gamut of imports from India, or asking Indian companies to invest in Russia. Also, as you said, labor movement might be there, because apparently Russia is short of technical manpower, skilled manpower, and the labor, and they would very much like to have a large number of people from India. So I think these are all issues which are necessary. China, of course, they have their own territorial ambitions, but China has been telling India for a long time that China and India are both civilizational powers in Asia, and we can delay our contest for a later time. In the meantime, if we build up our economic capacities, our technical capacities, then we might be able to see that Asia has a better role to play in the world relationships. So I think with what America is doing right now, that is making it possible for India to look at the Chinese advice much more positively, which we were not doing earlier, because earlier our foreign minister had been saying that let us first sort out the border issues, and then we will come to the other parts. But now I think that the Americans are putting unilateral sanctions on India, but while leaving out China or many other countries from this. So therefore, India has to see that, well, we also build up our ties with China to the extent possible, and also with Russia, which of course are very, very important ties for us.
Yeah, but the thing is, the Chinese state can afford to take some strong decisions. They, 2 months or 1.5 months, they stop importing soya bean. And the Americans immediately looked at that $10 billion bill and immediately, calmed down. So there were certain weapons, again, trade, the amount of debt that the Chinese absorb of the American debt. All of that also weighs in with, Trump trying to look at Bharat and not at China. The red carpet laid out, flying Kremlin is on the tarmac. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will walk up as soon as there is a signal, and we'll have to read the language between the two leaders. Pictures speak 1,000 words. The Prime Minister's gesture, waiting for nearly half an hour at the airport at the tarmac, reaching well on time. Abhijit Iyer Mitra, is this Bharat's way of saying thank you for the Tianjin gesture? Is that one? Secondly, the way these two leaders will meet, greet, and how they depart. If they depart in the same car, irrespective of whether it is the Prime Minister's vehicle or President Putin's vehicle, towards 7 local landmark, will also send a few signals.
So, look, this was an annual visit that used to happen. The Indian Prime Minister went there 1 year. The Russian president would come here 1 year. It just hasn't happened for the last 4 years because of the Ukraine war. And the second thing is, it was very curious. I was talking to air traffic control earlier today. Even the chief air traffic controller had not been told what time the plane would be landing. So there were a lot of security concerns that the Russians had flying over even over neutral airspace. I believe that this particular flight path has actually gone through military flight routes, not through the civil flight routes. And I don't know how the final coordination was done with the ATC and when the flight plan was given, because till this morning, Delhi ATC sure didn't know what time the plane was going to land.
They kept it very guarded. President Putin is just about to step out. Abhijit Iyer Mitra, just staying with the pictures. There you go, thanking the captain of the ship. as he steps out, and President Putin is stepping down. He's coming down, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi has walked right up there to the base of that those steps to receive President Vladimir Putin. There you go, as he steps down, walks up 10 steps, and there you will see Prime Minister Narendra Modi walking towards him. The big handshake and the big embrace. Lots of smiles between the two leaders. This is the long camera as Prime Minister Narendra Modi is walking slowly towards the red carpet. They meet halfway on the red carpet. Big warm embrace between the two leaders. Lots of smiles, lots of conversations. Clearly, both of them can converse in English, and that's what's happened. A short conversation in English as both of them walk together. The formal introductions to the delegates and the reception party, that's what's going on at this point, as all the members of the PMO, the External Affairs Ministry, the joint delegation, both sides, the Russian, Indo-Russian counterparts, all of them stand there. That's the welcoming party that's being introduced, and then a handshake and greeting that's happening. And thereafter, this will be interesting to see. Which way do they move? Do they go in separate vehicles towards 7 Lok Kalyan Marg? They're all standing there for a photo op. Clearly, President Putin in good spirits, all smiles. The security, as Abhijit Iyer Mitra had said, they've kept all the details very guarded. There is a welcome dance and a performance that's being made. 5 or 6 dancers performing traditional Indian classical dance form. And this looks like Bharatanatyam. And so the performance there, as both leaders pause. They watch, they applaud the performers for their effort, and that's the white vehicle. Now we'll have to see if they're all leaving together. We'll try and go across to those pictures and see if the leaders are departing together in the same vehicle. That means then the conversations, the broad contours of the conversation would have already begun. Yes, they are stepping in together. They are stepping in together. They are going together. There you go. The import of this is important. This looks like the president's vehicle. The president's vehicle in which Prime Minister Narendra Modi is also seated. The president sitting right behind the chauffeur, the driver's side, and Prime Minister sitting to the president's left. And the two leaders are already conversing. The SPG, the Russian security protocol, all of them sitting there. There are pictures that are being taken of the two leaders, and we'll have those pictures also being released in a bit. But Shashankji is with us. This is significant. After Tianjin, the second time the two leaders are traveling in the same vehicle. This is very rare. Shashankji, can you hear me?
I can hear you. So there is a very time constraint is there. They have to discuss. There's so many issues of great importance for bilateral relations and for the global situation as it is evolving, and issues of war and peace, that I think it's important that they should discuss this in the cars in a safe environment and take every opportunity to express their thoughts to each other.
But this is quite rare. This doesn't happen often. Surya Jayanti, Nikita Menkovich with us. Nikita Menkovich, this will be important. The Russians will be watching this. There is a show of fist, and then, of course, something symbolic. There's a conversation that's happening. We can see the Prime Minister quite animated. But this is important. President Putin doesn't do this often with many leaders. Nikita.
This meeting is really important for both countries. For a long time, we had been main partners as Soviet Union and India. Now we're coming back to that level of relationship. Of course, for my honor opinion, not the more important what two leaders are showing now, but what they are going to discuss. But the thing with you demonstrate us that nothing spoils this meeting and this dialogue between our two countries. It shows that both Putin and Modi demonstrate confidential and respect for each other. It is a good base for dialogue and for future partnership in economy, in defense, and military projects. I hope that also IT, science, and other fields will be a topic of our dialogue and next.
I'm just going to interrupt you because we're getting pictures from Arun Danta's camera. Arun, you're just at the point where the two leaders are departing in the same car, same vehicle together. So similar to Tianjin, it's a white color vehicle that should come your way any moment now. Arun, talk us through what you see.
That's right, Anand. You can see the convoy, the first car of the convoy is coming out. In fact, this is the protocol car that you see. The gate is open. This is the Palam Technical Airport, and you can see now there's a glittering vehicle. This is also a protocol vehicle coming from inside the Palam Technical Airport. We just saw, in fact, we're seeing those deferred visuals of inside the airport, and now you can see that one after the other, these protocol cars are coming, and any moment on this camera,
it'll be a white vehicle. It'll be a white colored vehicle.
Yeah, of course, this is the entire convoy. Now, Anand, you can see all these vehicles now coming out from the Palam Technical Airport. You can see these visuals on your screen as we've been discussing.
There you go. That's the white vehicle.
11-kilometer journey from here to 7 LKM, and it will not take more than 15 minutes for this entire convoy to reach at Prime Minister Modi's residence. You can see this entire entourage moving away from the Palam Technical Airport as we were witnessing the visuals of the inside, the welcome dance, the traditional dance there. And
so the cavalcade has left you, and we saw a little bit of a freeze in the pictures, the live pictures, because of the jammers that are in place. Huge amount of security, viewers, that have been put in place for President Putin's visit. And this is again breaking protocol. But Nikita Menkovich saying, we need to focus on what they will discuss. But the conversation has already begun. Surya Jayanti, will the White House also be watching? Will Europe leaders there also be watching the intensity of the conversation, the bonhomie between the leaders, the gestures that are extended? All this is also subtle messaging somewhere. Or would everybody look at, say, all right, this is optics. Let's look at the brass tacks. Let's look at what's being signed, what's being agreed on.
I think it is always easy to read a lot into the optics. They are an indication of a warm relationship and therefore important. I think Washington is probably going to ignore most of the optics, however, and wait to hear what the substance is. The main issue for Washington here is that Russia has made itself something of an international pariah by invading Ukraine, and as a consequence has faced strong sanctions over the last approaching 4 years. And therefore, what Putin needs out of this visit is a great deal. And I think there is a considerable power imbalance at the moment between Russia and India. Russia needs India much more than India needs Russia. And that's why you see President Putin really making an effort to show respect and show honor and project those diplomatic cues that you were just speaking about. Because Russia finds itself in a difficult position. One, it remains a mostly international pariah, but two, indications are that its economy is in recession, its budget is usually over 33% reliant on oil and gas revenue, and although its export numbers have not actually dropped, its revenue numbers are down 34% this year. It needs India. And so it has come to pay homage, and to some extent, it's come to beg. And so I think this is a great opportunity for India to secure some very solid economic benefits from the relationship.
Farwa Amir, I know you're pressed for time. Quick word. Farwa Amir has left. Just quick word from Siddhant, who's at 7 Lok Kalyan Marg. The cavalcade is headed his way. In exactly about 10 minutes, they should be there. Siddhant, the import of this... many experts believe Russia needs India more at this point than the other way around. What is Bharat's approach going to be? You've been speaking to a lot of people. What's being worked in terms of behind the scenes? What's the focus on?
Well, the focus will be mainly on the bilateral issues, Anand. The biggest concern for the Indian government is the trade deficit. In fact, Russian side also acknowledges this concern. In fact, the business forums from India and Russia have been meeting from last 24 hours to find out plan to reduce this trade deficit. Now, India also wants the buyer-seller relationship as far as fertilizer exports from Russia is concerned to go beyond the buyer-seller relationship. That is also something which is on the agenda. The most important agreement, Anand, is going to be the mobility pact, which both India and Russia are going to sign during this visit of President Putin. Both sides have been working from last 1 year to get this agreement finalized, and now we've been told that agreement has been finalized, and it will be signed tomorrow in presence of the two leaders. So now young Indian talented skilled professionals will be going to Russia to work. So this is something very new introduced in this relationship, and this is one big takeaway perhaps which we could expect in the official document tomorrow. So as you rightly said, Anand, in 10 minutes from now, Prime Minister Modi and President Putin will be reaching 7 Lok Kalyan Marg. Also, Anand, there needs to be a new word coined for this car diplomacy, because each time around these two leaders meet, they also do car diplomacy. They did car diplomacy in Tianjin. Now, for the second time, they are doing car diplomacy. Nobody knows what they're going to talk.
I don't think there is any car diplomacy here. But if I may pinch a word from the times of yore from Indian cinema, this is a Jai Viru on the same bike, and it's two friends trying to get a ride together and get some conversations in. This time it's not a motorbike, but it's a car, and it's a phenomenal gesture to show that irrespective of the ebbs and the flows, and also the highs and the troughs, peaks and the troughs, their equations will not change, and they will continue to partner with each other and maintain this friendship. That respect is something that needs to be underlined, and the gesture, the Prime Minister going back and sitting in that car, it's the Prime Minister of the country. There is no ego there, saying that, all right, you're the visitor, it's your security vehicle, but I will sit there, let's break protocol, it doesn't matter. And I think somewhere this half an hour, 40-minute wait is also important, because the Prime Minister understanding the import of President Putin, waiting for him in Tianjin on the sidelines of the SCO when Prime Minister Narendra Modi was held up, and President Putin's cavalcade waited for a whole 10 minutes before Prime Minister boarded the RSNR there. Let's try and go back to Shashankji and try and understand. Do you agree with Surya Jayanti when she says that this time around President Putin and Russia require Bharat more than the other way around?
I think we should not really look at it from this angle. I'm quite sure that the scholars in the West would try to see who is getting what from the other side and who can put more pressure on the other side. I think this is a relationship of mutual trust, friendship. And what we are trying to do is to move it from the buyer-seller relationship to a relationship of joint development and joint R&D. And I think technology transfer wherever it is possible. So I think there are so many more issues which are there. And above everything else, there is our trade deficit, which is very, very huge. So how do we take care of it? I mean, we can't simply say that, all right, we'll pay you in renminbi or in UAE currency. Therefore, we have to find some way out so that the rupee-ruble trade can be carried out. And if you remember, at a time when the Russians were going through a very difficult time, then India agreed to have the rupee-ruble trade at a rate which was very favorable to Russia at that time, not the international rate, but I think at the rate which the Russians wanted, more or less at that level. So it's a question of mutual trust. I think it's not a question of who can get what from the other side.
It's about I help you, you help me. Viewers, this labor mobility or people mobility is a huge opportunity, because Russia is quite far advanced in terms of technology, in terms of medicine, in terms of medical advancements, research and development, etc. As you touch down in Moscow, the airport is not so impressive, but the moment you exit the airport, it's beautiful. And Moscow is a beautiful city. I've been there. And, they may be very strict, but they are always very, very friendly. They break into a smile the moment you say that you're from Bharat. and they have a few songs and a few representative references, which almost every other Russian would be able to tell you. You can figure your way out, but thing is that we don't look eastward, we don't go, largely the traffic has been westward. Abhijit Iyer Mitra, will that change now? Is that possible? And from tourism itself, can there be more to gain for Bharat?
We've seen a change in Russian attitudes ever since the war in Ukraine started. I want to remind you, Russia is no longer the Russia it globalized long back. It's no longer what Indians remember of Raj Kapoor songs being sung and things like that. In fact, till the invasion of Ukraine, Russia TV was particularly hostile to India. They used to carry Pakistani propaganda throughout. They used to interview Kashmiri separatists. They used to take their coverage of India was virtually indistinguishable from Al Jazeera. And we know that was pretty much controlled from the Kremlin itself, because RT doesn't really have an independent editorial line. If you take, irrespective of what Margarita Simonian says. That has changed. I think Russia now realizes who its friends are and who its friends aren't. It's a delicate balancing game that India has to play. But look, we've balanced this very, very well. Even when Trump imposed sanctions on India, tariffs on India, not sanctions on India, the linkage to Russian oil was very, very tenuous. Remember that. That came much later. The initial threats of tariffs and things like that were purely about the trade imbalance. So even the Americans, the victory of Indian foreign policy here is that India's security relationship and foreign policy relationship with Russia has never been called into question, even by the Americans.
Right. Now, we just got Sputnik putting this out, citing the Kremlin, saying Prime Minister Narendra Modi's decision to meet President Putin at the aircraft ramp was unexpected and that the Russian side had not been informed in advance. That's what Kremlin is saying. So this is clearly a surprise move, a gesture that's happened last minute. Traffic has been stopped outside 7 Lok Kalyan Marg. Let's go across to Siddhant. The cavalcade should be arriving or entering 7 Lok Kalyan Marg any moment now. Siddhant, again, Kremlin saying that this was not informed, that Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be coming to the tarmac. So this was not advance notice. So this decision has been taken at the nth moment. Is it part of, a few surprises that are in store? And given the amount of security and the kind of secrecy that's been kept over the entire itinerary of President Putin in his visit to Bharat?
Well, that's right, Anand. In fact, till today afternoon, in fact, my sources were also indicating that EM S. Jaishankar will be the minister in waiting for President Putin. But it was CNN News 18 which broke this story first, that Prime Minister Modi will be going to the airport to receive President Putin. In fact, Anand, right now we are at 7 LKM. The traffic on both sides of the road have been stopped, and we could expect the cavalcade to be entering 7 Lok Kalyan Marg any moment from now, or rather the cavalcade has already entered, because we cannot see the cavalcade entering from the location where we are placed, stationed. But all we can tell our viewers is that the area has been cordoned off, the traffic has been stopped, and I could also see some of the vehicles coming to the front gate of 7 Lok Kalyan Marg. So both leaders are going to sit for the informal talks. It's only going to be Prime Minister Modi, President Putin, and yes, there you see, Anand, the cavalcade has arrived, and we can now officially say that the cavalcade of President Putin and Prime Minister Modi has reached 7 Lok Kalyan Marg after dropping the leaders inside. Yeah, and if I could request my camera person to pan and give shots to our viewers, the scene outside the 7 Lok Kalyan Marg. In fact, we could see the cars.
Yeah, he needs to raise the camera up a little. He needs to lift it up a bit.
Lift,
and you need to move out of the frame. Move out of the frame, lift it up a bit, and that's when we can see what's behind. Yeah.
Yes, that's right, Anand. So, the cavalcades, few cars have come to this side, the front gate of the 7 Lok Kalyan Marg, and we can officially confirm that President Putin and Prime
Can you ask
Minister
your
Modi
VJ to raise his
have
camera a
reached,
bit? If you can lift
7
the
Lok
tripod
Kalyan-
up a bit, please. Yeah.
Yeah. I would ask my VJ to raise his camera. There is
Yeah,
very
there you
little
go.
space, Anand, from
Yeah,
where we are
great.
reporting outside 7 Lok Kalyan Marg. So I really apologize that we
No,
cannot
this is
be,
better. This is better. Yeah, it's just because of the leaves. It's better now. Yeah, you're live on. You're on live. Go ahead, please. Yeah, stay on these pictures. Yeah.
Yes, Anand. So we can say that both leaders have reached in some time from now. The informal conversation will begin at 7 Lok Kalyan Marg. And Anand, it will only be Prime Minister Modi and President Putin along with the interpreters, nobody else. So it is in
Right.
reciprocity, because last time when Prime Minister Modi was in Moscow, President Putin hosted him at his mansion and both leaders spoke for about 2 hours. So we could also be expecting that President Putin will be briefing Prime Minister Modi about his meeting with the Americans yesterday with
the Witkoff
President
meeting.
Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff. Yes. So in all likelihood, President Putin will definitely be briefing Prime Minister Modi, will be discussing as far as Ukraine conflict is concerned. In fact, Prime Minister will also be sharing his
All right.
perspective, because Prime Minister has
We're
been
going to
in
pull
touch
away.
with
We're going to pull away from you, because these are pictures to the right, viewers, which are coming from the tarmac. Those are pictures live right outside 7 Lok Kalyan Marg. The leaders are already inside, and the PMO will be releasing pictures from inside any moment now. It should be on the social media handles of the Prime Minister, or it will come on the national broadcaster Doordarshan any moment, and we'll cut to those pictures when it comes. Just quickly going across to Nikita Menkovich. And Nikita, this entire issue with Ukraine, is this weighing in on Russia? Are there entities who don't want this conflict to be resolved and for peace to or for there to be ceasefire? Can Bharat play a role here? How does Russia view this?
As I said before, the main problem is that Russian land is occupied by foreign forces. I mean NATO mercenaries, so-called Ukrainian army. Also, Ukrainian land is also under control of United States puppet government. Of course, the only possible solution of this conflict is NATO going back, leaving Russia and Ukraine alone. It is our leave or do it or die. It is our quit India campaign, which you did a long time ago to make your country free. The same situation is now. Ukrainian and Russian people don't want to be American or British slaves. We are doing our best. Of course, we would prefer a peaceful decision. We would prefer the stop of this conflict, NATO troops going away from our territory, and Ukrainian people will get a freedom to elect those future without Zelensky, without NATO, without American dictatorship. But as we see now, a lot of politicians at the West are not ready for such way finishing of the conflict. They continue producing weapons, money, and mercenaries for so-called Ukrainian army to continue aggression against Russia and Ukrainian people. So, of course, we're doing our best in diplomacy, but we still have no choice but to fight at the battlefield for our freedom and for our future. It is the situation.
Well, Nikita Surya Jayanti had an interesting perspective where she said America has got a bit of a problem, especially the White House, because there are entities who do not want this war to end, who want the conflict to continue or the fight to continue. How would you read this before I bring in Ambassador Shashank? Yes. Is this the critical aspect? Can Bharat play a role where somewhere both sides agree that Ukraine will not join NATO? That's the first step for ceasefire. And then perhaps de-escalation. Surya.
Before I answer your question directly, I think I should just say that the magnitude of patently false gibberish that your guest from Moscow has just spewed is so astonishing that I don't even know where to start factually unpacking it. But the fact that he is spouting propaganda that disingenuous issues caused by Russia in Ukraine are important to the dynamic that we're seeing here. I think one could overstate the degree to which Washington's interest in India and India's relationship with Russia has to do with Russia's ability to continue to prosecute its war in Ukraine. I think, as another one of your guests said a lot earlier, the justification of Indian oil purchases as somehow funding Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine came after and is not particularly convincing. So it is a complicated moment for the United States because the United States has argued a number of inconsistent and fairly incompatible priorities. On one hand, it is trying to force a profoundly disadvantageous so-called peace on Ukraine. On the other hand, it's slapping additional oil sanctions on Russia. It doesn't add up to a particularly meaningful path forward to a solution. And I think all of this matters because the situation that Russia has found itself in by virtue of its international aggression is adequately isolated and adequately economically crippling that although Russia's economy has remarkably defied expectations of collapse with the initial sanctions now going back almost 4 years, it is nonetheless in a very difficult position, and it really does need a lot of labor to come in. And so you speak about the Mobility Pact, for example. Russia has a massive demographic problem. It's lost over 1 million people on the front line and casualties of various kinds. There's been mass exodus by people trying to avoid the draft and trying to avoid the crush of sanctions. So Russia has a demographic and a labor problem. It really needs Indian workers. It also really needs India to continue buying Russian crude. Although Russian crude levels have not actually decreased, the export levels, the amount of money that Russia is getting has dropped 34% since the United States put tariffs on India and then since the October additional sanctions on Russian oil companies like Lukoil. And so it's becoming a more complicated economic relationship for India. I think the political relationship is something that India has managed quite well, considering that its priorities are not the priorities of the United States, but it does need to balance its relationships on both sides. So the Indian strategic autonomy approach has been very wise.
Right, but Shashankji, we've got Sati Kazanova also with us, and Sati, I'll come across to you. After a quick word with Shashankji, there is a neutral perspective, or perhaps there is a different perspective to this entire, there is what Nikita would say and what Surya would agree or disagree. One aspect is the word Ukraine itself means borderlands. So clearly this was the erstwhile border area for the Russian territory. Vladimir Putin is born not so far away from where Volodymyr Zelensky is born. So there is a history there. The other thing is it's the NATO that's expanded eastward, and 20 years ago this was flagged off by Putin, and this is on record that the NATO should not move eastwards towards Russia. That's one part. The other thing is the only warm water access are the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea for the Russians. There is no other warm water access. NATO moving into the Black Sea means the warm water access stops. So this is one part. The other part is the entire Donbas region, which is largely Russian-speaking, and Russia has alleged that the CIA worked the machinations for the government overturn, compared to what the West would say that Russia was trying to supersede its own people and superimpose its authority over Ukraine. Now, how do we view this, and where is the solution? Because both sides have to agree on a solution. The nation that suffered the most amongst all of this is Ukraine. It's totally destroyed. Ukraine is the bread basket or the wheat basket to the world. It's also the fertilizer hub. There are a lot of contributions Ukraine made to the world.
I agree with you that Ukraine people have suffered the maximum, and that is because the NATO countries, they felt that they would be able to support Ukraine to the extent that Russia just collapses or Russia just gives in. And that was their initial expectation, which has not materialized. In fact, more and more American scholars are now talking about the Russians trying to go into not only Crimea but also Odessa, and to gradually convert Ukraine into a landlocked state. So therefore, what is happening is in Ukraine is we have to keep in mind that something similar was also being tried by the NATO countries when they wanted Quad to become an Asian NATO, as Russia and China had started talking about that. Then India would have been like the Ukraine of Asia, where Taiwan and China would not have fought, but India would have fought on behalf of Taiwan, with the as we fought in First World War and Second World War and lost several 70,000-80,000 people in both wars. So I think that is why Indian people are very reluctant, and they want peace to come into Ukraine. They want peace to come in Europe, because whenever there is conflict in Europe, it has led to problems in all over the world. So I think we have to be careful with that. That this time we are trying to bring about a balanced relationship of peace with China, and we are seeing, as Abhijit Iyer Mitra said, that Russia should not feel compelled to play the second fiddle to China. And then we have, of course, the global south. We have our friends in Brazil, South Africa, we have IPSA. So we hope that we would be able to put across the views of the global south more effectively in the BRICS forum and other forums which are there in the interregional levels.
Right, there's a lot to talk about, but there's also a dinner spread in a short while from now. So are they going to keep the official aspects on the side and also exchange some personal notes and share some non-work moments as two great leaders and of two big nations? That we have to wait and watch. I thank all our other guests, but I'm going to quickly go across to Satani Kazanova, who's with us. Sati, thank you very, very much. Namaste. How do you see...
Namaskaram.
Namaskaram. And how would you view President Putin's visit?
If you don't mind, I would not speak from a political point of view, as I'm not politician, I'm musician, and I'm just so happy that our cultures, our countries building their friendship and relationships stronger, deeper, and of course the cultural side is very fundamental for our countries, because India and Russia, we have way more common points than we could think, such as values, as a family, spirituality, and someone says that, you know, the Western world is very focused on artificial intellect, as long as India and Russia, they focus on the spiritual intellect. And I really like that expression and this idea. So I think that is the very important boundary between our countries. And if we will focus on that, I believe we could build beautiful relationship, because as I love India and I come so often to India, and now I'm even learning on the faculty of Indology. I'm learning Sanskrit and all those things.
Wow.
So yeah,
because what you just said is so rooted in Indian philosophy, Bharatiya Sanatan philosophy, Hindu philosophy, if I may say. So how did you get to know about this? What's your bond with Bharat? How did it happen?
All happened through my guru. His picture, by the way, behind, and my guru Paramahamsa Vishwananda. I met him 13 years ago, and since that moment, I started initiated, and he just gave me all this knowledge. And after all these years, I understood it more than just thing I like. This is the really the root and sense of my life. So I consider myself as a Vaishnava. So it's just more than style of life. So that's why I decided to go to the University of the Friendship University to learn for Hindu Indology. And
are there many in Russia who are drawn towards Indology or Hindutva or Hinduness? The Vaishnava philosophy?
No, unfortunately not many, because it's quite deep topic. You have to really dive. You know, Western world, they're charmed by yoga but it's such a small part of the great and deep philosophy. So, for example, now reading Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, I understand it's so artificial how the understanding of Western word of yoga itself, even the meaning of the word, we don't know. I mean, in the Western world.
True. Let me also ask you, you said that we should call ourselves Bharat, not India. Why do you say
Definitely. Yes.
that? Why do you say that?
Because it brings back to your own root, to own values and power.
I remember, so you believe that we should call ourselves Bharat in any language,
Yes.
and that's the better way to refer to ourselves.
Yes, I believe it will bring you back to that original source, to your power. Because originally, India was not called India. It happened through Arabic and British people because of geographical location. So those who live nearby or behind the river those were
Sindhu.
called Hindi, Sindhu, Hindi, whatever.
Yeah, Al-Hind.
So, yeah, Al-Hind, that's how it happened. So it's not your original name. And I think it's time to come back. And it's a beautiful, soft revolution or evolution of your culture.
Well, Sati, if I may call you that, in
Yes.
2018, I believe Prime Minister Narendra Modi showed President Putin something, and that
Yes.
involved you. So I'm going to request you to sing that for us. Mahatma
was,
Gandhi's favorite
Vaish-
bhajan.
Yes, very short part of that. And it's also a very favorite bhajan of my Gurudev, and that's how I even was familiar.
So will you sing that for us, please?
वैष्णव जन तो तेने काहिए जे पीड़ पराए जानी रे वैष्णव जन तो तेने काहिए जे पीड़ पराए जानी रे. I think that's enough.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, and we look forward to you joining us in our studio the next time you're in Delhi, next time you're in Bharat. Thank you so much for your time, Satani Kazanova. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Namaste.
Namaskaram.
Well, these are the pictures, viewers, of President Vladimir Putin arriving in Bharat just a short while ago. He was given a warm welcome, an embrace of welcome from Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and Kremlin says they did not know. President Putin was made aware only after the flying Kremlin touched down at the Palam Air Base, and now these two leaders are already at 7 Lok Kalyan Marg. They traveled together in the vehicle that was supposed to ferry only the Russian president, but both of them traveled together. So a repeat of the Tianjin moment again. And now what's going to be on the conversation, not just over dinner, but perhaps what's been spoken in those first 15 minutes, that will also have huge import. Zaka Jacob takes it forward.
Welcome to our continuing coverage here on CNN News 18. What a moment this is. The Prime Minister a short while ago arriving at the Palam airport to receive his friend Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, both of them riding in the same car, and they've now reached the Prime Minister's residence at 7 LKM, where there will be a private dinner that the Prime Minister will be hosting for the Russian president. And more importantly, there will be, of course, the restricted meetings that will happen as well. So after which the president will go to the ITC Moria where he's staying, and then tomorrow is the business end of his visit. Let's just bring you up to speed with the images that we've seen already. Just about 30 minutes or so after President Putin touched down, Prime Minister broke protocol, went to the Palam airport to receive his friend. You can see him there at the tarmac, at the red carpet, welcoming President Putin. The Kremlin says they had no idea that Prime Minister Modi was coming to receive President Putin. Both of them, it's a warm hug, a warm embrace, and then they walk down that red carpet, and both men then, of course, share the same car. It is an Indian car. It is part of the security protocol team for the Prime Minister. Both of them took a moment to try and savor the Indian cultural performance. There was a troupe of women dancers performing the Bharatanatyam, so that happened. They took a few moments to savor that in, and then thereafter, both Prime Minister Modi and President Putin walk up to this car this security cavalcade car that's part of the Prime Minister's security protocol. Both of them ride in that same car and head towards 7 LKM, the Prime Minister's residence, where, of course, the Prime Minister is hosting the Russian president, the visiting head of state, in a private dinner, followed by restricted talks. And then President Putin leaves for the ITC Moria, where he's